2. 1, 2. Can Charlie hear you?
Yes, he can. Roll it, take it, track it.
Seems fair to me.
Fairness isn't the issue with anything.
We're in the open.
Make a judgment on unacceptable by any reasonable standard. You can't.
Donnybrook is made possible through the generous support of the members of KETC.
Welcome to Donnybrook, a freewheeling exercise with no holds barred. I'm Martin Dugan, and I want you to meet my cast of characters.
The public would probably, who are these guys? Why are they here?
Mark Vittert, founder of Business Journal Publications. Ray Hartman, editor-publisher of the Riverfront Times. Bill McClellan, columnist for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Rich Coster, national sports editor of Business Journal Publications.
The guys, by that I mean the original cast. We didn't know whether they turned the electric off in the midst of our first effort.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. I'm shocked that it's been on for 30 years.
Nobody would have predicted this.
Charlie Brennan's always saying that Ray and I are founders.
And we really were auditioners in the sense that it was Martin, Rich Coster, and Mark Vittert who really got the idea together.
Bill McClellan, you've come from Phoenix.
We came down and did that first show, and the next day Martin called me and said they liked it, we're going to do 5 more. He said, but they want you to wear a sport jacket. And at the time I didn't have one, and I thought, do I really want to buy a sport jacket for a show that's going to last a total of 6 weeks? But I did buy it, and now here it is 30 years later. I'm on my 3rd jacket.
Hold on. Do you agree that drug testing is okay, Mark?
Yes.
I don't think that you could just go out and get 5 bright people and have that good a show. You've got to have the right type of friendly chemistry.
What right does he have to be on that ticket?
Oh, is that another one of your famous Costco
No, but Vittert, let me ask you one.
Top 50 in the
let me ask
what does that mean?
Realize what a blow that's going to be to this city?
Whoa. You know, and Martin was certainly old school in that, you know, very strong-willed, very opinionated, but very respectful of other people, and whether he agreed or disagreed.
Now you're on record, despite your liberal reputation.
I really think that the success of Donnybrook can be attributed to the late, great Martin Dugan. He also came up with the formula, which was, you know, if we don't disagree about it, let's not discuss it. There are many topics that we all agree on, like eminent domain and the use of it. So since we all agree, why bother bringing it up? That would be boring, as Martin would say.
Hardly make a Donnybrook out of something. Everybody says, oh yeah, change the show to patty cake.
I'll tell you how.
I have a question if I could.
I don't take myself all that seriously.
I've got plenty of nothing.
And I consider myself sort of the headmaster of a school for delinquents.
Design the station so that people don't have to walk in.
And it's silly if you broke their rules.
You don't like the rules.
No.
Hey, enough already. Tell us what's in the details on this thing.
To try as hard as they can every game, Charlie. The point is,
They're calling it no hell.
I'm telling you.
Is that the federal
And that's the job of the churches.
Okay.
To preach that for to do with
Charlie,
Right.
And let's say,
Oh, forget that stuff.
Plan
We're going on
your
to Mark
family.
Vittert.
who haven't you called them racist?
Well, it could be
That'd
the
be good.
Smucker Dogs or other young girls. If you want to talk about cruelty,
The
you can't
school,
do
it
that.
can't do it, and those can't do it. But what it can do is say, like, I'll tell you what.
your privacy and your freedom being trampled.
Martin Dugan, our provocateur emeritus. Wrong. You are so wrong. It's a blast to get to spend this time with people that you know, genuinely care about. Please don't tell them that I said that.
I didn't say anything about any of this stuff. And then the second is, I think, yeah, I will.
They're funny. I mean, they're hilariously funny in addition to being some of the brightest minds.
I think all of us that are on the show probably had discussions like this when we were kids at the family table. And people may talk over each other, but you may get into arguments, but it was all that you were still family. And I think that's kind of how we feel about each other.
What about the business owners out there who are concerned about liability issues? I mean,
95% of the things that we see in America, we agree upon. It's the 5% that we disagree upon have become this really, really negative wedge in society. And hopefully, you know, people can watch us and understand that you can debate, you can argue if you may, but you don't have to dislike each other. And you also can't refuse to see the other person's point. You can just say like, "Look, I just disagree with you."
Oh, come on.
I'm not a big Cardinal fan, as you know. And
No, it's about the Speaker of the House of Representatives of Missouri, Ray Hartman.
What do you mean? Like, this is worse than all the other, like, 180 homicides that
No, but
occur in the city
Charlie-
of St. Louis
Charlie,
on an
the
annual
def-
basis?
Charlie.
Because high-end Chanel handbags
No,
are
no,
taken
no,
from
I'm not
Boston
saying
Friday
that.
and then taken across the Mississippi. Hey, thank you so much for joining us for the first show of the 31st year. Great to have you, and wow, some memories there, and some new haircuts too, as it turns out. Hey, thanks for joining us for the 30th anniversary special of Donnybrook. Thank you for all your support, and thanks to our friends at the Gatesworth for making this program possible week in and week out. How are we going to top that? Martin Dugan kicking off the show tonight, appropriately so, and I think it's going to go downhill from there unless we got more clips of Martin Dugan. Let's meet the panelists seated around the table tonight, starting with the media veteran herself, Wendy Weiss. Along with, as you know, one of our Donnybrook founders from the Post-Dispatch, Mr. Bill McClellan. Another one of our founders from St. Louis Magazine, the founder of the Riverfront Times as well. You know him, you love him, Ray Hartman. And please help us welcome Alvin Reed from the St. Louis Americans, STLMag.com and beyond. Alvin Reed. And a couple of things here. We're 30 years. It's truly amazing. And thanks for all your support. I was doing a little bit of research, just a little bit today, and Captain Kangaroo ran 29 seasons.
All right.
The Simpsons, 28th season. Gunsmoke, just 20 seasons. Lassie, as cute as Lassie was, just 17 seasons. So I kind of feel sorry for those others.
Yeah.
Right.
But and also the clips you just saw in that montage, so professionally created by Anne Marie Berger, our director, who is not here tonight because she welcomed into the world Cecilia Rose just a few days ago. So Anne Marie.
While she was working, by the way.
Oh, is that a fact? Yeah.
Just about.
No doubt, no doubt. Hey, we're also going to invite your phone calls later in the hour, and you can tweet throughout because at hashtag DonnybrookSTL, we welcome all your tweets, and we'll play them throughout this special broadcast. So we're going to kick the evening off tonight with Mr. Bill McClellan, who was talking about stadia and paying for them on January 7th, 1987, and it looks like we're going to pretty much take up where we left off there. We're talking about stadia and paying for them. This week, the St. Louis Blues said they need $140 million, about 70 from the city of St. Louis, 70 from the state, at a time when we've got high homicides and too few police. Bill, you're not in favor of paying 140 state and local dollars for the Blues, are you?
I am. I'd give the Blues whatever they want. I really like the Blues. They've got their finger on the pulse. My daughter and her husband, for Christmas, I gave them tickets to a Blues game, and it was a game against Nashville. They lost 4-0, but Lorna texted my wife during the game and said, I've got a celebrity sitting right behind me, and I've never done this before, but I asked to have my picture taken with him, and it was Ken Bone. And, from the debate, with the man in the red sweater. And I thought, and the Blues had him there and had him wear his red sweater, and I thought any team that's got their finger on the pulse like that, who understands who we are, I really think we ought to give the Blues what they want, and I'm serious about that. We own the stadium, the city does, so that we've got to maintain it. So yes, I'm in favor of giving them the money.
In fact, you feel so strongly about supporting the Blues that you're actually wearing St. Louis Blues blue tonight, right? Because that wouldn't be Chicago Cub.
It's actually both, Wendy.
It's both.
It's celebrating the Cubs, but in honor of the Blues. But no. In all seriousness, I would give the Blues money. I think they need to fix up that.
I agree, because after being treated like the redheaded stepchild of a now in bygone era at the Rams Dome, I think the loyalty and the community involvement that they have displayed these many years, I think we should if we don't give them exactly what they want, I think we should come as close as we
The Blues
possibly
aren't going
can.
anywhere, first of all. The Blues aren't leaving, okay, just like the Cardinals were going to move to Dupo or whatever, all right? And I think if you make your argument based on the Blues are the good guys and the Rams are the bad guys, don't do it. Don't give them the money. Make the argument on the city, from which I know anyway, owns that building. And it's not about the Blues and it's not about this or that. It's about the Blues and concerts and the NCAA tournament and the wrestling tournament, which has been there, and the hockey tournament, which has been there. It's about all that. So I can see giving them the money, but based upon what it brings back. All these other things are about.
But you realize it's where the heart is, really, because they have been.
No, don't put your heart. But Wendy, if you put your heart in it, you're gonna get it broke every time. You know, we've learned that over life.
Charlie, 70 million happens to be the number that Bill Bidwell wanted for an NFL stadium. And
wow.
I think we should give it to Bidwell. I think
that was more than 30 years ago.
I didn't think that. No, it was 30 years ago, actually. That's our first topic of our first show. Well, by then he was already moving. This is it. I mean, it's not about giving it to the Blues. When you have first of all, I don't entirely agree with my fellow auditioner over there. It depends on what part of it. You know, they asked for 138 million or whatever. That's an ask. I think it ought to be a bit of a negotiation. When they talk about a tax on tickets going forward and using the revenues from a new tax, I think that's fine.
I agree.
Because that's users, it's fine. If you're talking about giving back money, sales tax money that the city's already collecting, you're going to blow something like a $6 million hole in a city's budget. And so before we just say, yes to everything, I think what this is about infrastructure. I mean, when you have we're kind of lucky. A lot of places, by 20, 22 years, they want to build a new arena.
Right.
And examples, the scoreboard. You look at this. When I first saw it, I said, well, why are we building them a scoreboard? I go to the games. I think the scoreboard's fine. Well, A, they don't have high def, which is a big deal now. And B, there's a little detail. They don't have any parts anymore, the scoreboard. So,
okay.
But
here's the deal.
There's a reason you have to put money into an old
agree.
facility.
Let me just make myself clear. I think the Blues ownership is great. They're a valuable asset, but they are also in a city of 318,000 that last year had 188 murders. And we said this before. We had 1,600 police officers 20 years ago. We're down to 1,200. Let's be adults and have our vegetables before we eat dessert. And sports are fine, but if you're going to take $4 million out of the city's budget, someone's going to have to explain to me what department is going to take the hit.
But it's more than sports. That's what I'm saying. Like, this is the argument you can make that this is not about the Blues or this. It's about a lot of things that go on in the Scott Trade Center.
Joel Osteen, Beyonce, whoever else sings there.
Hey,
right?
Wait a
that
minute.
money.
I'm more taken aback by the fact that you just said Beyonce. Is that what you said?
Beyonce?
Beyonce.
Right.
Beyonce.
So that's what it's for. But look,
Charlie,
you're taking tax money away from the taxpayers that the taxpayers have been receiving.
You can't let the city-owned building fall apart.
Fall down. That's it.
Now, let me say this about a city-owned building. Why do you think the owners want the city to own it?
No, that's
because
no,
then they have to.
That's not the way they set it up, Charlie. You can't pin this on.
I wish the county would chip in as well.
No, wait,
I'm glad the county
Before
is
we
not.
start asking the county to chip in, how about we ask the county to chip in? You know, everybody comes up with these grandiose plans, and the first thing they say is, we tap in the city for this amount and that amount. Why don't they come to the table with, for this to work, St. Charles, St. Louis County, and St. Louis have to divvy in. And you know why?
St. Louis County, St. Charles isn't going to do it.
Well,
That's unrealistic.
all right, well, fine. Then it's unrealistic.
They have other
Then
priorities
stop it.
like police.
No,
Oh,
Charlie,
wait,
you can't. Charlie,
right,
you
shooting an
cannot
innocent
take.
deer,
You
that's
can't,
what they got to
Charlie,
do
the
out
city
there.
does. Look, and I'm the one who just said I don't think they should use existing sales tax, and I think you're absolutely right. We ought to try to do things regionally. You can't take everything the city does and juxtapose it against police. The city does lots of things, and one of them is if you have a building that you have as a facility like this, you have to keep the roof good.
So
have to
as
do
you
stuff
said,
to
Ray,
it.
make it a negotiation. We will, as city, we
they should.
require city leaders to repair that building, to update it to current standards.
But at the same time, no deal unless you raise the pay of police officers and hire more.
And you, I agree with that.
All right.
I agree with that.
That's patty cake.
Yeah,
Don't agree with
exactly.
me. All right.
Well,
Now
part
we
of the
have to
thing
take a
is
break.
Tom
We've
still-
got to read some letters.
Very divisive, and I'm happy that President Trump will unify all of us.
Okay, well put. Hey, let's go to a letter, and we received some tweets and letters. Best wishes to all the Donnybrookers tonight as you mark the 30th anniversary on the air. You are carrying on a great St. Louis tradition. I know my dad was very pleased with how you continued with the spirit and liveliness that makes Donnybrook such a long-term success. That from Martin and May's daughter, Mary Dugan Leahy. What a nice letter. Thank you so much. How about a tweet? Let's take one of those. And we heard from MF Ferguson Media. Congratulations to the 9 Networks Donnybrook team. 30 years on the air is a remarkable accomplishment for any television show. All right. Folks, you may not know what goes on behind the scenes here at the 9 Network of Public Media, and so we thought we'd bring together a little look behind the scenes on the making of Donnybrook for your viewing pleasure. We are still arguing here, but not about Donnybrook.
Everybody always asks, are you guys really friends?
No, we're not, Anne Marie.
Please call my attorney. This isn't cleared.
So
Really.
Wendy, unfortunately, some of your fellow castmates have said that you sort of have a diva persona about yourself. Is that true?
It's really hurtful, because I know that's Bill McClellan. I mean, he says it to my face.
Oh, Wendy can be such a diva. Come out of the trailer, Wendy. Charlie loves you. He really does.
And I'm not sure where that comes from.
Eddie!
I've
been waiting. I have an assortment of scarves for you.
I've been waiting for 20 minutes.
For 20 minutes? I'm so sorry.
No, that's
I'm so sorry.
not going to work. This is definitely not. That's not going to work. You're wearing my favorite. I told you something that would match my eyes. Oh, God. Have you nothing in Bloodshot? It's sort of a gross mischaracterization, I think, too. And I think it's sexist as well.
You are special.
I'm not supposed to tell people what's in the mugs.
Gosh darn it, people like you.
How's that? Oh, that's a good one. I don't like that one very much.
Man.
This is our major briefing sheet.
Well, it's...
Do you guys have a nail file for Charlie?
Yes. Not too much now, just a little bit. Just make me look a little younger, that's all I ask.
Any thoughts?
I really love the paisley. I love the paisley.
We're going with this.
Oh, I like that.
Tom and Katie fighting to death.
What about your scarves? You've got a thing with scarves, right?
Yeah, I do.
Are you really, protective of your scarves?
Protective is such an exaggeration. But I kind of don't want people touching my scarves. They're just sort of an integral part of the program for me, and getting mentally and spiritually where I need to be. Stop it.
Wow, how fun it is, and then invite them to call the number on the screen.
We felt that he should be allowed in the mayoral debate.
Definitely time to call our lawyers. It does bring to mind, you see a lot of the people working on the show behind the scenes you ordinarily don't. And so I'm glad we're taking a look at the cast and crew, which does. How about a round of applause for Kent Samuel and the crew for Donnybrook, really, who make the program for sure. Well, we'll get on to a few topics, and we have a surprise just around the corner. Let's talk a little bit about Eric Greitens. Ray, the governor-elect was at Zisser Tire on West Florissant in Dellwood this week, the site of a place, an establishment owned by John Zisser that was looted twice in 2014. So, Governor-elect Greitens said, among other things, that something like that's not going to happen again in West Florissant, where 14 businesses were burned. And he also said he wants to double down on his pledge for no state money for stadiums. What'd you make of this?
Well, I mean, I agree with him on that. I'm not as sympathetic to his,
he's taking something I would say is less than an even-handed approach to our crime divide with the symbolism of going to Zisser, and what he's been saying has been, I think, could be viewed as divisive going into office, but that's sort of how he ran, I think, on being tough on crime and on that. But on the as far as the stadium, I think he's, it's so far, he hasn't taken office yet. He's certainly saying the right thing in terms of the political wins and what most of us feel about corporate welfare for stadiums. However, he did have a meeting with the backers of the stadium group, who I think is a good group of people, and they didn't come out of it acting that despondent. So I think it's premature, before he gets into office, to try to predict what he's going to do. I don't think he could walk back the whole thing, but we'll have to see what comes out of that.
I disagree. I think that he is sort of redesigning the wheel, the political wheel, and somebody who has been this emphatic about no taxpayer money for millionaires. I don't see him backing down one little bit, not walking that back.
I agree.
He talked about private funding.
Right,
but
and it just, I'm gonna go back to the, Zisser Tire and Auto, great company, great people. I will say this to the governor, that if any segment of the population decides that they are going to be totally, just against the law of the land and set places on fire and do what they're gonna do, there really isn't a lot that anybody can do about it, because the way we handle ourselves is, if I go and torch somebody's building, you don't shoot me down in the street. So what are you going to do? So I think some of that is a little bit of bravado, but at the same time, I applaud him for, look, okay, I'm the law and order guy, and to the chagrin of friends and people I talk to, I'm 60-40 with Greitens, okay? I think that there is some hope there, all right? And I understand what he's saying, especially with this soccer stadium thing. And he better hold to his guns, because if he doesn't, he's opening a floodgate of, one, hypocrisy, two, anybody who wants anything at any time can come to the state and ask for it. And when you get tough with him or her, how are you going to explain yourself? And then in a time where the budget is not balanced, and you're talking about cutting this program and social services and this and that and the other thing, how are you going to stand up before the people and say, like, oh yeah, I had 40 million for them?
As usual. We've had governors who
politics
talk
as
a good
usual.
game,
Good
and
point.
then after careful examination. But I don't think he's that breed of.
Started out well. I mean, I agree with him about the no money, state money for the soccer stadium, and as far as crime goes, I thought he handled the robbery of his wife very well. I mean, he talked about how he wanted to talk to the mothers of those kids, and he wanted to create a world in which everybody has a chance. I don't think he's come off poorly at all.
Well, and I think you're right. And I'm not suggesting, we talked before the election about sort of the analogies between Trump nationally, the outsider, and Greitens. There were some, I think, valid comparisons. I think so far those don't exist. On one hand, with Donald Trump, we're looking to get what we feared we would get. And in Greitens' case, I think everybody, regardless of who voted however, should be very open-minded and see how he does. All I'm saying is, let's not assume ahead of time what's going to turn out. I think Eric Greitens is off to a good start.
Okay, let's move on to another quick topic, and then we have a surprise. This week, Alvin Reed, it was announced that state officials are voting to make to put the accreditation mark on St. Louis Public Schools. As you know, the St. Louis Public Schools lost their accreditation, then they became partially accredited, and now state officials are voting to restore accreditation. Good times in St. Louis?
Well, I think it's good, and I applaud the efforts that have gone through to get St. Louis to this point. Kansas City has been accredited, and St. Louis following close behind. I'm suspicious though, because with all this talk about school choice and reform, before we go to vouchers or things like that, what will come first is, if you're in a school district that is not accredited, you can now go to school where you want to go. Imagine if Kansas City and St. Louis, every student in the city of St. Louis and the city of Kansas City could go to school in any public school they wanted to go to. that would create a statewide problem, and I think that's a problem that needed to be avoided.
So you're saying the state is doing a preemptive strike to prevent the Republican General Assembly with a Republican governor from...
Well, there's a lot of
Carrying out the marching orders of the
don't
new
say
education
Republican,
secretary.
just Republican, because we have a lot of Democrats that are hollering about school choice and inner city kids and all that. I'm saying, well,
Are you
like I'm always saying, it's funny how that worked out.
Wait, are you questioning?
It's funny how that worked out.
Are you suggesting that DESE, the State Department of Education, isn't legitimately looking at the St. Louis public schools? Because I think that really sells the St. Louis public schools short. I think that Calvin Adams, who I think is the most underrated civic leader we have, I think as one of my friends would say, he's the truth. This guy is the real deal. I know a lot of people don't know him because he's so self-effacing. Calvin Adams has been here now for almost going on 9 years. That's the longest. Before he was here, we had 8 superintendents. He was the 8th in 5 years. He's the longest serving one in 50 years. He has done a fabulous job. I understand that the schools still have a long way to go.
They do.
But they finally, there's a lot of factors that go into accreditation. They've gone from a big deficit to a big surplus. They've got governance under control. They are improving dramatically in test scores and in
test scores
and you
still
can't
rather
deny
weak.
that isn't no
weak.
conspiracy.
The reason that St. Louis schools and Kansas City are accredited are based on things that do not come back to what are kids learning in the classroom.
They come
and
through
I'm
a
sorry.
bunch of, Alvin, they come through graduation rates, dropout rates, attendance rates.
All right,
There's a lot of
enough,
them.
guys.
They're
We've
not
got a
just
long way to go.
subject-
Got to cut off the conversation for just a moment, because on the line from the Northwoods of Michigan, we have one of the Donnybrook founders, Mark Vittert. Welcome back to Donnybrook, if only over the telephone. How are you, buddy?
Hey, Charles. I'm glad to hear you, and I've been watching you. Yeah, Carol's. We're up here in Leland in northern Michigan, and Carol rigged this up where we can watch you on a computer, and really Hartman and McClellan look no different than they did 30 years ago. I don't understand what's happening with them. That makeup is pretty good. I'm glad to hear you guys. Charlie, thanks so much to you and Channel 9 for calling me and letting me say hi tonight on our 30th anniversary. And I want to say to Alvin and Wendy, I surely always enjoyed so much being on with both of you. You're doing great. And I want to remember several folks, if it's okay, Charlie, who were there with us 30 years ago, actually 31 years ago, when I first took that tape over to Mike Hargrove, the head of the station at the time, whose only comment was after he saw it, the tape of us all, he said, "This is simply terrible." And somehow we survived it. He did. That's really what he said. And I want to also thank a couple of guys that were there with us back 30 years ago who really gave us a great start and who really were unsung heroes in this long run of Donnybrook, which is, and I know Ray and Bill will remember Andy Rulin and Carl Swikard, who were our first producers, directors, and gave us a good start. And I also just want to say, I know you're going to touch on the folks, and I think you probably did that in that montage. I got in a little bit late, so I didn't see it, but who have all been a part of Donnybrook. But I know we all think of, particularly tonight, of Martin and Rich and Greg and Ann and Nan, who were really all most wonderful folks. And lastly, I want to say to my old buddies, Bill and Ray and Charlie, who've done so much for our hometown and are really terrific friends. I really miss you, and it was great being with you for all those years. 30 years, and happy anniversary, folks. And thanks for letting me be with you tonight, Charlie.
How about that? Mark Vittert, ladies and gentlemen. So nicely done. Thank you, Mark. Hello to Carol. And if you can't get enough Mark Vittert, you can always watch his son, Leland Vittert, on Fox. He anchors the news shows at noon on Saturdays and Sundays and does a great job.
Apples and trees, right?
And Mark still writes his column for the St. Louis Business Journal.
Yep. Reflections.
Often they reprint an old favorite, but often he has originals.
I'm sorry he didn't stick around. We thought he'd join in on some of this stuff.
Well, maybe he should. Add a little common sense to this broadcast.
We still miss him.
We do. Hey, we've got a couple of tweets we want to share with our viewing audience. Already enjoying the Donnybrook 30th anniversary show, starting the boy off right? Oh, there we go. I see that. Very well. Thank you very much for that
That's
one.
me in front of the little kids, see? I'm like Captain Kangaroo.
Maddie Dames, happy anniversary. I'll be watching with my mom as we did 30 years ago. Wow, how about that? Thanks, of course, her mom, Joan Dames from, Joan Dames from the Post-Dispatch, and actually a good friend of Martin Dugan's as well. And so they watched the very first show on January 7th, 1987. Glad to have them watching right now. Okay, we actually found some people who really appreciate the show, or at least they said they did, and we're going to go to that right now.
Well, congratulations to Donnybrook for
30 years of flights of fancy, occasional serious discussion.
Teaching us social action, politics, and culture.
Have never managed to quite agree on anything.
Is a pleasure to watch and a benefit to our community.
We in St. Louis are privileged to have Donnybrook.
9 Network is one of Missouri's largest classrooms, and Donnybrook has been its greatest teachers.
It's a community icon because it's necessary if you're involved in the media in any way at all.
It's not often that I get to be in front of the camera when Ray and Wendy and Charlie and Alvin and Bill are there, because they monopolize all the time.
You should come out to the zoo sometime. Find a sense of peace, harmony, oneness in nature, but if you do, odds are your show won't be nearly as good.
And frankly, some of my closest friends and biggest critics have been on Donnybrook, and often they're the same people.
Martin was a great visionary when he put this show on. And Charlie, you're good. You're not quite as good as Martin.
Cheers to 30 years, Donnybrook. Thanks for keeping us talking.
Congratulations on 30 years. I'm looking forward to many more.
Thank you so much. And it wasn't too long ago that among us, one of our panelists got the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Press Club, and the 9 cameras were there capturing those moments. If we can share some of those with you right now, we'd like to do so. There he is, along with Dan Martin, his colleague from the Post-Dispatch, Bill McClellan getting that Lifetime Achievement Award, and boy, you really blew him away that night. Hit a home run with the great work you've done all these years, Bill McClellan. That doesn't mean we're going to go any easier on you throughout the next year or 30 years. Hey, let's talk about Governor-elect Greitens again, because he's got a controversial appointee, a guy by the name of Jimmy Stoney, who used to be, Wendy, a Huffington Post editor. But he left that job under a cloudy circumstance. Turns out he was accused by interns of inappropriate behavior. So we know that what's been going on in Jefferson City the past year, where the Speaker of the House himself had to resign for inappropriate behavior. So did a Democratic lawmaker from the other side of the state. And so the question is, at this point, is it okay for the governor-elect to appoint a guy with this questionable background?
The accusations, were they ever acted upon? That's for me, and I think for Governor-elect Greitens, he's probably thinking, well, if no one ever filed a lawsuit, you can say just about anything about anybody. It's not the best of circumstances when you're looking for somebody who is going to be serving a serving in a high-profile position in his transition team. But I think all of the pregame hysteria, whether it's at the state level or the national level, let's wait until they get in and really start messing things up before we get hysterical about this.
I disagree. I think you should be hysterical in advance if you can be. I don't have a real strong feeling about this one because we don't know the facts. The interesting thing, and again, it's back to handicapping Greitens, is during the campaign, he received $1 million from a guy named Michael Gogan, I believe his name was, who was embroiled in a fairly large controversy, and I think had to leave one of his companies over an affair he had with a adult entertainer, and but that wasn't the part that was interesting.
Do you mean an entertainer who was over the age of 21?
Part that got something like that. But the part that got interesting was John Brunner made a remark in this heated primary that says, "I'm not in the business taking advice
from somebody who takes money from somebody who keeps a sex slave. And he ended up getting himself sued, or at least filed. And so that was one of the most entertaining parts of the Republican primary. And so if he was willing to hold firm and not cave in on that in any way on that, I don't see any expectation that he's going to be, in his view, I don't think he's going to back off on that.
That was not an entertaining moment for John Bruner.
No,
I think he's still getting sued. You know, and he apologized and asked Greitens to step in and intercede with him. So I'm sure Bruner didn't think it was
entertaining
amusing.
for us.
It was entertaining for us. On this thing, I don't know what to think, because on one hand, this young man has never been convicted of anything. It's almost odd that Greitens would appoint somebody with this kind of a record.
Well, that's what I'm talking about, because he doesn't see that.
All right, I'm the guy that said, you know, the football coach should suspend you and throw you off the team. I don't care, you know. Hey, I got one question for you. Were you at this residence at this time and the police showed up? Okay, then that's enough for me. Not saying you're guilty, but hey, I got business conduct with my athletic team. Now, I said this last week. If I'm the incoming governor, same thing. What's the deal, man? You know, they let you go based on something that happened while you were working there. You might be innocent, but I'm the incoming governor, and I just don't need it.
But Alvin, my point is he didn't do that in any respect. He made no effort.
It doesn't matter what went
on
down.
Gogan. I'm just saying he didn't, and I wasn't bringing.
Wait, you might be innocent, but you know what? You might be playing for somebody else next year too. There's nothing wrong with that.
There could be a whisper There could be a whisper campaign about.
No,
and there have been.
And there have been about.
Okay.
All I'm saying is there's a lot of things where were you there? If you were in Texas and somebody said you did something,
got to move on, Alvin. Save it for hey, folks. Bill, Bill, let me ask you about this controversial painting that's hanging in the halls of Congress, actually in a tunnel connecting an office building to the Capitol. It's done by a Cardinal Ritter student who's now an art student in Chicago. But in this montage of various characters from St. Louis, from his neighborhood, we're told, there is a police officer who is a pig. And apparently yesterday, according to your colleague Chuck Rosh, who writes for your paper from Washington, a former sheriff who's now a congressman from Washington State has asked Lacey Clay to take this down. Clay likes it. It says it's free expression. How do you feel? Should the painting depicting a police officer as a pig be taken down?
No, I find it offensive myself, and I wish that Congressman Clay would say that he thought it was offensive. But as far as taking it down, I mean, it is art, and the fact that I find it offensive isn't enough to ban the thing, as far as I'm concerned.
It's a contest, and some of the other artwork from the Missouri winners of these art contests include a tribute to a soldier, a little girl who's, got her arm around a soldier, very sweet, very patriotic. An older woman, like a grandmotherly type, is also
those aren't in question.
Is also depicted. But that's what I'm saying. There's balance, if you will. I mean, if you want to say that all of Missouri has it out for police and law enforcement, there's balance. I am disgusted.
Okay, well, if you're going to ask balance, though,
can
Wendy,
I finish?
Well, let me just
okay,
sure.
Sure.
If you're going to say balance, what would the response be if this been a picture negatively depicting black people or Jewish people?
As animals.
Yeah.
As animals.
Yeah.
No, I am disgusted. I am on the exact same page as you. I am disgusted because they're not just pigs, they're like wild boars. They have horns. And so, yes, I find it absolutely disgusting, and I will defend to the death his right to paint it, because that's what the law enforcement officers, that's what the thin blue line.
I will say this, down the street from us at the Contemporary Art Museum recently, there was a display of some African-American individuals on sidewalks, and the artist had smeared them with toothpaste and chocolate. And there was a huge outcry from people who said, these should be taken down. And in fact, the curator resigned just after that. I find it kind of hypocritical that some groups protect free expression in some cases, while at the same time seemingly loving it just as long as someone else's ox is being gored.
I didn't think there should be screens.
It's a question of whose ox is being gored. What I think is interesting about it, personally file this under one of those, it's interesting but not important stories, and it's kind of a, I just not that interested.
Yeah,
in,
unless you're the wife or husband of a police officer.
No, I don't think so. I think that it's I mean,
in the nation's
we ought to be fighting about something else, I think. But having said that, what I find interesting is if people are on the right are offended, no one says you're being politically correct. And so I think it's interesting that people who claim to want to put an end to the era of political correctness are the ones saying, take it down, take it down. That's political correctness.
No, that doesn't make any sense.
No, I totally disagree with that.
I'm in Congress. Quickly, Alvin, because we got to move on.
I'm in Congress. I wouldn't have it hanging up because police officers do a great deal for our society. That being said, he has every right and every willing to do so. But hey, in this day and age, where we're at right now, the toughest thing is going to be for Congressman Clay and people who represent the Democratic Party and throughout America is, look, it's not the same. And we do not have to be like what just went on for the last 8 years. But we have to be higher.
Okay,
we have to be better.
Gotta take a break, guys. We're running over.
Hang
on to those thoughts, and don't forget, everybody in television land, you can call in. We're going to take your calls in just a moment. You got the numbers on the screen. Fantastic. Don't forget those tweets as well. Speaking of tweets, let's take one or two, shall we? Honigford tweeted, "Happy 30th birthday, Donnybrook, and congratulations, 9 Network, on such an impressive show anniversary." Thank you so much. Ziger, "Donnybrook, congrats on 30. We love you because you love St. Louis." Thank you for that tweet. Hashtag Donnybrook STL. Hey, we're going to come back in just a moment with your phone calls, but first, let's take a look at Donnybrook in the eyes of some of the panelists. We'll put it that way. How much did Mark Wright make? $4 million? Is that what it was? Does anyone think that's too much? Not I think it's okay.
As somebody who doesn't have to worry about that anymore, I think fine.
I agree.
We'll see how he's doing. If he's doing
I say she should oppose.
3.7.
Well, that's it. But the point,
All I got to do is throw the red meat in the middle of the table and the lions jump on it. And I just say something, and then Ray and Alvin or Wendy and Bill get into an argument, and I can sit back and collect a paycheck.
Third one was for gun possession, Judge.
You know, Martin had told me that his legacy here was Donnybrook.
Yeah.
You know, professionally, his legacy was Donnybrook. He left that to you.
Oh, God. Boy, what a mistake he made. Poor Martin. That was his one mistake.
You know, Charlie came in with such big shoes to fill. You know, Martin had always been the voice of God. And, you know, Charlie's not old enough to be the voice of God.
I don't want to mess up his act, but sometimes Charlie can come off on the radio as being very kind of hard-hearted or something on TV or radio. And I don't think I know anybody that's a nicer person off the air than Charlie, and a more giving person in terms of the amount of time he spends in his community raising money and doing good stuff.
Charles Brennan, he's in charge.
Sometimes I wonder how anybody can keep the show going, because, you know, people are arguing, do you cut it off or let them go? And some of the people are harder to cut off than others.
Let's move on.
I'm clean.
Okay.
I'm clean.
One little point. You can be.
What they don't realize, these colleagues of mine, is that we have a 28-minute show.
Charlie's literally going to poke you with like something like a sharp instrument if you don't just zip it, because we're going to move on.
They sometimes think we have 24 hours. It's not Jerry Lewis's telethon, Ray. We're here to make a quick, pithy, intelligent point and then move on to the next topic.
That is wrong.
You're really naive if you think they're going to let them march.
Okay, listen.
I'm talking about the
Swiping away and find restaurants and other entertainment venues.
We all know it's the Electoral College.
Ray Hartman is the soul of the show.
Raising his hand and swearing under oath and lying.
You know, he is so passionate. After all these years, you think that he become either jaded or disinterested, but he still cares about these issues.
Well, Ray Hartman is the Mick Jagger of our little band. I mean, you know, people say, well, Ray talks so much and everything. And he does talk a lot. But when Ray's not there, the show is just missing a big element.
Bill McClellan is the ace.
The wise old owl. Absolutely.
Is more and more our national politicians have become like the royalty in England, where they seem to exist mostly for our amusement.
Well, Bill McClellan is I think he's made an art form out of common sense.
When he writes, he's got St. Louis and where we are mentally just absolutely on target. And he's even starting to look like Mark Twain. Am I the only one who's, I mean, right? He's starting to look like Mark Twain.
The funny thing about Alvin is we thought, okay, we'll get a certain perspective from Alvin and we'll be assured of that point of view. You don't know where he's going to come from.
It is not the worst thing in the world if a kid, got paddled.
Alvin is also not a dogmatic person. I mean, Alvin surprises me a lot of the times with the point of view he has. And, and it's always nice to be surprised. And Alvin's a real original.
But now one thing that I don't shy away from that I think others do, and maybe you're not supposed to say this, I do realize that I am the only black person on this show. I do realize that I have a responsibility to other black people in this city and in this nation to be as good as I can, to espouse what I truly believe, and if that means that black people don't agree with me, that's even more important. So yes, I understand what my responsibility is, I always have, and I never run away from that.
Thank you
for joining us for another edition of Donnybrook, starting with the media veteran herself, Wendy Weiss, along with Bill McClellan from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch.
Well, Wendy also is a person who came in with huge shoes to fill. Because I think Nan Wyatt had been on before Wendy. And I thought, well, no one can really replace Nan. And, and Wendy has not, tried to replace anybody. She's just been herself.
Wendy's just, she again is somebody that is, she's too self-effacing.
Wendy is the most underrated Donnybrook panelist, according to my sister, who also believes that Wendy is the voice of reason.
He quickly turns it around to an opportunity for poaching, and he might not like the word poaching, but that is exactly what he's doing.
Well,
the person who has the common sense that the other panelists lack.
I think more than anything, it's just gratitude. Honestly, it's gratitude for the 9 networks' commitment to the program, for the incredible crew that we work with, for the viewers who have literally passed it down like an heirloom to their kids.
Certainly part of it's luck. Part of it is, I think we've always had great chemistry on the panel. And always think of our fearless leader, Martin Dugan, and his passion for this.
Missourians being allowed to carry concealed weapons.
Yeah, neat idea.
As our audience
It's certainly not surprising just because of the people that have made the show so iconic. The Martin Dugans, the Mark Vitterts, the Ann Keefes, Nan Wyatt. It's got such a firm foundation that so it's not surprising, but just really grateful, really grateful.
It's been such a blessing in my life and so much fun.
I'll tell you what. Thank you so much. In a moment, we're going to take your phone calls on these past 30 years and looking forward to that. And I heard, is it true, Bill McClellan, that one time you tied Mark Vittert's shoes together during the show?
Mark always claims I did. and my memory is so bad, I go along with it. So I probably did.
And many times you did the show in shorts when people didn't realize it.
Well, we did that too. Yes.
Yeah.
But always had shorts on, Charlie. Just don't let that story go too far.
No, indeed. Awkward. Let's go to some of these phone calls, shall we? Mike, hey, 30 years with Mike and Leslie. Hi, Mike. How you doing?
Congratulations, everybody.
Hi, Mike.
It's really nice. Let me be the first caller by accident. I've been trying to think back. It's been over 16 years I've been calling in this show and watching it for a lot longer. The best way to learn about what's happening in St. Louis and even the world. Thanks, guys, for being around.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Hello to your wife.
Yes, indeed.
Yes. Yeah.
Thanks so much. Jim in Afton, how are you?
I'm fine. How about you? Congratulations.
Thank you.
I just have a comment, and I with my work schedule, I can't watch your program all the time, but I'm glad this is the first time that I actually can get on here and make the call. So congratulations to you guys. My comment is, I was just appalled when I heard that on the news they were saying that all the people that make minimum wage are going to get an increase, and it was a nickel. I think that's just a joke. I just can't believe that they think that's such a great thing that everybody just got a nickel raise. Maybe the politicians or the business owners or some of those people should get a nickel raise too and see how they feel. They say that a lot of the kids that are in school are holding those jobs, but with all these places closing down, Macy's, Sears, and everybody else, where are all these people going to go? They're going to be working for minimum wage, and it's going to be very hard for them to make a living.
I think that's a good point. I'll say this, it is going up a nickel, and that's too low. But the real minimum wage is about 9 now. You'll see a lot of people on the lower end of the economic ladder now making 10 and 11. I know, $7.70 is the new minimum wage. I don't know if there are a lot of people at the actual minimum wage, except for those who might be also making tips.
But I think there's historically been a great disagreement on the panel in terms of dispelling the myth that somehow these minimum wage jobs are ever going to be enough to sustain and raise a family.
Oh, they're
they're never going to be that way.
Thanks for your call.
Agreed.
Yeah. Thank you, Jim.
Hey, Ruth in Creve Coeur. Thank you for joining us on this special 30th anniversary edition of Donnybrook.
Thank you very much, and congratulations on 30 years. I was calling in regarding St. Louis Public Schools and Dr. Calvin Adams. All I can say is he truly is an asset not only to the St. Louis Public Schools, but to our city as a whole. He's a man who works tirelessly to try and improve the standards for all the students. His job is one that I hope a lot of people are grateful for all of his efforts. We're just very lucky to have him because I just remember, as I think you all had commented, that it was kind of like a revolving door with superintendents with the St. Louis Public Schools. They brought him in, given him a good salary, and it seemed like they were out after 8 months and walked away with a nice sum of money. And you can't say that about Dr. Adams.
Great guy. He's a civic treasure. And Ray, why don't you jump in and tell us about his pay?
Well, yeah, his pay when he arrived here is exactly the same as it is today. And he has repeatedly declined increases in his pay from the SAB. And who does that?
Well, wait, can I interrupt you? About 7 superintendents in the county have not gotten a raise since they've been there. I'm not taking anything away from him, but I'm just stating a fact.
They're great too.
He's actually, I'm not saying, I didn't say he's the only good superintendent in St. Louis, but I don't know anybody that declines a pay increase. And I know he did.
And I think the Special Administrative Board, Rick Sullivan and others have done a pretty good job. And I'm not saying test scores are where we want them, but I thought that Rick Sullivan has done an admirable job.
Okay, I'm not throwing water on the whole parade, but I'm just saying that, come on. Long way to go, lot to do, and I'm not sure we're there yet.
Alvin, thank you for making this Donnybrook.
Back to an elected board.
Oh, golly.
You know what?
No elected board.
Oh, as soon as possible.
Appointed by the mayor. The best urban school districts in the country are headed up by school boards appointed by the mayor.
Wow. I like the idea of letting the citizens vote on people.
Let me tell you something.
I do not.
I was
democracy.
Charlie.
It's good for everybody
else
except St. Louis, right?
When this issue came up in 2007, I said I knew Rick Sullivan a bit, knew of him more, but and said at the time that I thought he was very qualified, very competent. He was a great choice, but that it was a terrible, undemocratic structure to have an SAB. Today, I'm happy to say I was wrong, and the SAB has been a tremendous success.
Now, first of
and
all,
we ought to keep going.
Now, wait a minute.
It has.
If you said this is a bad idea and this is wrong, then it's a bad idea and it's wrong. It may have worked out right.
I feel like
it may have worked out right.
I didn't like the concept, but now that it's in practice,
okay. Well, all right. Well, 4 years from now, you say the same thing about the president of the United States, who got less votes than the other woman did, and say like if things work out, say like no, it was all good.
Let's okay, folks. Let's go to some tweets. And by the way, you can always write us, 3655 if you want to agree or disagree. Hey, Sue's 21. Congrats on the big 30. I can't believe I've been watching for half of your run ever since I moved to St. Louis, and we're so glad you did.
We do.
Thank you very much. Congrats, Donnybrook. Here's to 30 more years of great debate and discussion. Wendy, you make those ruffians look good. Wrong. She makes us look great. Hey, special K sings, y'all are looking sharp. Happy 30th, and keep up the arguing. Okay.
I agree with that one.
Yeah, well, we got Bob in Hazelwood on the phone for what might be our last phone call this hour. I don't know. We'll find out. Hi, Bob.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Congratulations on 30. I was just wondering, since I'm pushing 83, I was wondering if maybe sometime before I listened to my last program there, you guys, when you have a member of the panel with a Republican-leaning philosophy, you replace them with a Republican. But you also do that with the people who have a more liberal bent. I was just wondering, if you could cut that playing field there.
Stay tuned. Hey.
Well, I ain't going nowhere, first of all.
You want to know something? We've had every position on this panel expressed, and we don't take a topic unless we disagree with it. So we always make sure that every topic has 2 points of view. So we do appreciate that, though, and we're always improving the show, and we thank you for your contribution. Now, many of you have been to Donny Bash, our big soiree in the fall, and we've done that many times. Well, we do that at the Sheldon, and we're going to do something similar this upcoming year in June. You have another opportunity to join us June the 24th for what we call Donny Fest. It's a special one-time event that's going to take place June the 24th. That's a Saturday. It'll take place right here at the 9 Network next to the beautiful Media Commons, which you should all see. For tickets, if there are any left, and they're going quick, you got to go to 9net.org/Donnybrook. But I wouldn't snooze on this one. Act quickly to make sure you get tickets for June the 24th for the 9 Network's Donny Fest, okay? So mark that calendar date, and we'll see you in June. And we'll see you for another 30 years. Thank you so much for being the greatest television audience and viewers possible. Thanks to the 9 Network, Jack Gelmish, Mike Hargrove, and thank you to these wonderful, brilliant panelists who not only make my job so easy, but fun as well. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great week. See you next week.
Donnybrook is made possible through the generous support of the members of KETC.